Hello everyone! Please watch the entire lesson to learn about MLA citation format. Formatting your MLA citations correctly is critical to your essay. When you think about your in-text citations, think of them as a shortcut to your works cited page at the end of your paper. Within your essay, in your body paragraphs, and maybe the introduction, if you use any sentences from the article you've read, you want to make sure that you put that sentence in quotation marks and always put your MLA citation at the end of the sentence. One way you can do an in-text citation is to include a signal phrase in your sentence. To do this, you would have the author's name and the title of the reading in the sentence. Whatever verb you use in the sentence, you want to make sure it's in present tense. Also, after you mention the author's full name one time in your essay, from there on out, you can just use their last name. This would include in the signal phrase. Please make sure you do not use only the author's first name and do not just say the author. Always give their last name. Here's an example of what an in-text citation looks like with the signal phrase. In James McBride's story, Hip Hop Planet, this is the signal phrase for the quote. It has the author's name and the title of the article. Notice there is an apostrophe S at the end of McBride's name. This is to show that the story belongs to McBride. Make sure you show possession in your signal phrase. If you have not mentioned the author before, you need to use the first and last name. If you had already mentioned the author's first and last name, you could just use the last name here and say, in McBride's story. Notice the story or the article title is capitalized and it is also in quotation marks. Please make sure you do this in your essay. The quote is, "The dream, of course, is to make a record." The quote has quotation marks around it, and at the end of it you have your in-text citation. There are parentheses and a page number. Page 15 is where you can find this quote in the textbook. Make sure you put your page number at the end of your quote, and after that, put your period. The period always goes on the outside of the parentheses and page number. If you prefer not to use a signal phrase in your in-text citation, that is okay too. This is what the format would look like. You will have your quote, the words from the article will be in quotation marks, and then at the end of the quote, you will have parentheses with the author's last name and the page number. Notice there is no punctuation in the in-text citation here. The author's last name is Worrell. There is a space, and then there is the page number, page 42. The citation goes at the end of the quote, and the period goes on the outside of the parentheses. If you need to add words to the quote that you've chosen, it's okay to do that. You just have to follow this format and put your added words in brackets. Brent Staples writes. Notice the verb used to introduce the quote is in present tense. Writes, not wrote. You always want to use present tense verbs. Yet these truths from his past are no solace against the kind of alienation that comes of being ever the suspect, a fearsome entity with whom pedestrians avoid making eye contact with. At the end of the quote is the page number where we can find the quote in the textbook, and after the parentheses is the period. In the beginning of the quote, the words from his past were not in the textbook. These words were added because the writer felt they needed clarification in the quote. If you add words to the writer's quote, just put them in brackets like this writer did. Sometimes you might need to take words out of the quote instead of adding them, and that is okay too. You just need to make sure you put ellipses where you have removed words. Ellipses are just a series of 3 dots or 3 periods in a row. You do not need to use ellipses at the beginning or the end of a quote unless you left off words of a sentence at the end. So never put them in the beginning. You may put them in the middle of the quote if you take words out, and you may put them at the end of the quote if you left words off of the sentence. Here's an example. Brent Staples writes, "Yet these truths from his past are no solace against the kind of alienation that comes of being ever the suspect." There are 3 periods at the end of the quote, or an ellipses, because this was not the end of the sentence in the original text. These ellipses may also be in the middle of the sentence if you take out words. Once your in-text citations are done, you also have to put citations at the end of your paper. This is called your Works Cited page. You will have to start a new page to set up your Works Cited page. When you finish typing your paper, just hit enter until you get to a brand new blank page. At the top of the page, you will type in the words Works Cited, and you will make sure that that is centered on the page. Even if your paper only has one sentence on page 4 and you're at the end of your paper, you still have to hit enter to page 5 to put your Works Cited page in. This is how you need to format your Works Cited page. Make sure you are still keeping everything double spaced. As long as you've already set up this formatting, you shouldn't have to change anything for the spacing. Center the Works Cited wording, and then for each of your sources, make sure you do a hanging indent. What this does is it indents the second line of each source. All you have to do is highlight your sources, right-click on them, and select Paragraph. This will take you to a menu for paragraph formatting. On this menu, look for Special and click on the drop-down arrow. There should be an option for hanging. Choose this and it will make your citations have a hanging indent. On the Works Cited page, there are several things you'll be making note of. You have to use the author's name, the title of the article, and the publication information. This will vary depending on the source you are using. At the end of each citation, you also have to put the medium. For instance, for our citations, you are using print medium, so you will have the word print with a period at the end of your citation. When you are doing these Works Cited citations, make sure that you put everything in alphabetical order by the author's last name. Here's an example of what your Works Cited might look like when it's complete. Notice you start with the author's last name, then put a comma, and then put the first name. After that, you have to have a period. Then you will need to have the title of the article in quotation marks with proper capitalization. After that, you're going to put the source in italics and the date. After the date, you're going to put a colon and put N period P period for no page number. This is where the original source came from. After that, you're going to say that it was reported in our DRE textbook. So you will put capital R, lowercase pt period, in, and then the title of our textbook, which is DRE 098, colon, Integrated Reading and Writing 3. Put a comma, and then put custom edition. A period goes after this. Our textbook was printed in Ohio, so put Ohio with a colon, and then the publisher information, which is Cengage Learning. Then put a comma, and put the year that it was published, 2014. After this, you need to put a period, and then put the page numbers from the DRE textbook. For instance, if you look at the citation for Deborah Tannen, you will see the page numbers are 71 through 75 with a period. The medium was print, so put print at the end with a period. It's very important that all of this is done exactly how it is in this example. The Works Cited goes in the middle of the page, and then your citations will go in alphabetical order. Make sure your punctuation is correct, and make sure you put spacing after your punctuation, otherwise the hanging indent will not work properly. Now you are at the end of your citation. Everything is done in in-text citations and everything is done in your Works Cited page. Congratulations.